Уважаемая госпожа Майра Мельдебекова, госпожа Зоя Пак, господин Mahmoud Murod.
Dear Mahmoud Murodov, Ms. Zoya Pak and Bakhtiyor Namazov, could you please raise your hand so that we will assign you as the speakers for this webinar?
Hello, everybody. We will be starting in 2 minutes. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, добрый день, good afternoon.
Good morning.
Welcome to the first webinar of the Virtual Central Asia Symposium on ICT and Education. My name is Auken Tungatarava, and I'm the Program Officer for ICT and Education at the UNESCO Asia Pacific Regional Bureau for Education at UNESCO Bangkok. And it is my pleasure to be the moderator to kick off this event with the theme of ICT-enabled distance education opportunities for students and teachers in light of COVID-19. The countries we're featuring today are Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and the Republic of Korea. We hope that each of the national responses and approaches are useful and relevant to you all. The purpose behind these webinars was to look into how the global pandemic has impacted education for rural and remote communities in Central Asia, as well as other countries, to ensure that these populations are not left behind and have access to quality and lifelong education opportunities. We hope that all of the countries today can share their best practices as well as challenges for all of the participants to learn from and consider for their own context. Today, we have more than 370 registrants. Thanks to all of the participants for your interest in this webinar. This shows that the topic is relevant not only to Central Asia, but to many stakeholders and countries in Asia Pacific and globally. Before we begin, allow me to briefly go over the housekeeping information for this webinar. Next slide, please. There are 3 planned webinars in total as part of the virtual CASIE. These are co-organized by UNESCO Bangkok, UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning, and UNESCO Almaty, while generously supported by CARIS. For more information for each webinar, please keep checking our website and follow the social media pages shown here, where more information will be shared. Next slide, please. Please make sure that you're signed in as first name, last name, and country or organization. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and photos will be taken. The webinar is available in both Russian and English. If you'd like to change your language, please go to the bottom of the screen to the globe icon and select your desirable language. All of the resources will be available on the UNESCO Bangkok and Almaty websites in English and Russian. Questions are of course welcome throughout this webinar via the Zoom chat box. Please be clear and concise with your questions or comments. At the end of the webinar, you will be redirected to the exit survey. Please help us by completing the short evaluation to improve our webinars in the future. With that, I would now like to commence the welcoming remarks, starting with the Director of the UNESCO Asia Pacific Regional Bureau for Education in Bangkok, Mr. Shigeru Aoyagi.
Distinguished delegates from Republic of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyz Republic, Republic of Tajikistan, and Republic of Uzbekistan. Dr. Sanju John, Director of Higher Education and Academic Division at CARIS, symposium participants, partners, and experts. Good morning from Bangkok. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to the first webinar of the virtual Central Asia Symposium on ICT in Education, in short, CASIE 2020. Since 2011, UNESCO has organized CASIE as one of the key policy platforms for tackling challenges, promoting partnerships, and integrating technologies into national education systems in Central Asia. This year, this virtual CASIE brings us together to discuss COVID's impact on education systems, particularly in rural and remote areas, co-organized together with UNESCO Bangkok, UNESCO Almaty, and the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning. Over the past years, Central Asian countries have shown commendable progress, reforms, and forward-looking visions for ICT in education. In parallel, UNESCO has been supporting the governments of Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan in developing and implementing national ICT competency standards for teachers. During COVID-19 times, these countries have also taken emergency measures and made effort to provide continuous and quality education through various distance and online modes. However, the pandemic has also highlighted pressing challenges, especially the widened digital divide and learning gap in rural and remote areas, where even before the pandemic, students from rural areas consistently fell behind their urban counterparts. This is particularly important, as more than half of the region's population still reside in rural areas. The pandemic has worsened existing inequalities between urban and rural students and requires effective mitigation measures to address the learning gap. In addition to learning loss, this crisis has also threatened the return to schools for the new academic year. For this, ICT has been central in supporting remote and distance education. This is why, under this year's overarching theme of ICT-enabled skills development in rural and remote areas impacted by COVID-19 in Central Asia and beyond, we hope to continue to provide a platform to share issues and challenges that Central Asian countries are facing, while also learning from and sharing their achievements. Considering the fourth industrial revolution, the advent of frontier technologies, and the demand for new jobs and skills, it is high time to address the digital divide and learning gaps between urban and rural areas. We hope that this platform continues to encourage collaboration and partnerships among the Central Asian countries towards the effective and efficient integration of ICT in education. I'd like to express my sincere thanks to CASIE and the Korean Funding Trust for their continued support of CASIE. UNESCO will continue its effort to serve Central Asian countries to face the uncertainties together and build more resilient, inclusive, and innovative education systems. I thank you very much for your attention and all the best in this symposium.
Thank you, Mr. Aoyagi. I would now like to give the word to Ms. Krista Pikad, Director of the UNESCO Almaty Cluster Office for Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. Ms. Pikad, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Auken. Dear participants, greetings from Almaty. Уважаемые делегаты из Республики
Distinguished delegates from the Republic of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyz Republic, and Republic of Tajikistan, Republic of Uzbekistan. Distinguished Dr. Zhang and colleagues from CASIE from the Republic of Korea, distinguished colleagues and participants. I am really very glad to welcome you here on behalf of the Cluster UNESCO office in Almaty, and to welcome you at this first from the series of webinars of Central Asia on ICT in education and in 2020. And I'm really very glad to see some of you again. And as my colleague Shigeru Aoyago has just emphasized, UNESCO is organizing these seminars starting 2011 with continuous support of the Korean Targeted Center Fund vCASIE. And this platform is addressing the problems that are typical for various levels of educational system with the help of ICT. According to our plan, the seventh symposium was supposed to be conducted in Nur-Sultan in Kazakhstan in July this year, but because of COVID pandemic and due to the current situation, we have decided to shift it to the next year and to organize this year a series of 3 webinars focusing on the development of skills based on ICT in remote and rural areas, which have been affected negatively by COVID-19 pandemic in Central Asia and beyond. And we have decided to unite all our efforts with UNESCO office in Bangkok and the Life Learning Center in Cambodge. And we are really very grateful to our partners from CASIE for supporting this idea and their contribution in the organization of this virtual symposium. ICT skills and competences is one of the priorities for improvement of distant learning in the Central Asian countries, and jointly with the development of high-quality digital content, this particular conclusion was made by vice ministers from Central Asian countries in the course of the Congress that was conducted in April this year, and it was dedicated to the problems in the system of education. And UNESCO Almaty, jointly with UNESCO Bangkok, have launched the implementation of the program on ICT skills improvement among teachers, as well as jointly with UNESCO Institutes of Mahatma Gandhi. We are trying to eliminate the gap between the quality of education in various areas of Kyrgyzstan. Jointly, we believe that this series of the webinars, which is a part of this symposium, will enable us to learn the best practices in the area of ICT integration into education, as well as the capacity building of all the stakeholders, especially while providing educational services in rural, remote, and most vulnerable groups of population in our respective countries. Our first webinar today will provide us with an overview of the situation in education in our countries, which was affected by COVID-19, and particularly on the training of the teachers and students in remote and rural areas. In addition, CARIE's representatives will talk about their support of the educational system in Central Asia, as well as the support of the Ministry of Education of Korea provided to vulnerable layers of population, as well as the teachers through PPP projects. And the second webinar, which will be conducted on the 7th of October, will be focusing on the development of skills throughout life in remote and rural areas with the help of innovative approaches, such as, for example, open and distant learning through ICT, particularly as a response to COVID-19 results. And finally, we will also be considering the issues of high quality digital content and how to make sure that it will be available and accessible for both the teachers and the students, especially in rural and remote areas. And we'll be talking about the efficient use of various available and open learning materials according to the needs and standards of education. And I would like to take this opportunity and to thank our colleagues from CARIES and the Regional Bangkok UNESCO office for the organization of this first webinar. We are really very appreciative for your support and for your efforts. And we believe that the topic about today's seminar will be very topical and interesting for all participants. I would like to wish everybody a very fruitful and interesting work. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pekat. And last but not least, please welcome Dr. Sanju John, Director of the Higher Education, Academic Research, and International Cooperation Department at CARIES, to give the final welcoming remarks. Dr. John.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sanju John, Director General of Higher Education and Academic Division at CARIES. CARIES is under the Ministry of Education, Korea. We charging for using ICT in education. First of all, I'm honored to be with you today webinar. I would like to extend my warm greeting and gratitude to all the attendants on ICT enable distance education opportunities for students and teachers in light of COVID-19. And I would like to thank the executive from government in Commonwealth of Independent States to attend this webinar despite of your busy schedule. And I would like to convey my sincere gratitude to the director, Mr. Shiogero Aoyagi. and Miss Chris Director Krista Picat, and the staff of UNESCO Almaty and Bangkok office, and CASIE for their hard work and participation leading up to this event. As you know, the world is facing an unprecedented crisis due to the pandemic of COVID-19. And it is affecting education as well, since many schools are closed. The learners have difficulty in continuing their study. However, the Korean government is successfully responding the transition to online education despite the COVID-19 crisis. Also, many other governments are trying their best to support endless education to all students via distance learning. I'm pleased to have opportunity to share both CIS country and Korea's case and the experience toward the education sector in response to COVID-19, and have a discussion to seek the strategy respond for CIS countries. And finally, I hope this webinar will provide a place to cooperate with each other so that we can expand the educational opportunities and improve the quality and equity of education in post-corona era. I wish all you do well, safe and health. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aoyagi, Ms. Pekat, and Dr. John. And now, to set the stage for our better understanding of the impact of and response to COVID in education, the first set of speakers will be the Central Asian country representatives, who will share what they've done so far, as well as their plans for the future, especially in rural and remote areas. During their presentations, I would encourage you all to share your questions in the chat box, and I will summarize those to the speakers after all of the countries have finished presenting. Each speaker will have up to 7 minutes, so please pay attention to the timer at the top of the screen. When your time is up, the timer will notify you with a sound. And I would now like to request the first speaker from the Republic of Kazakhstan, Ms. Mayra Mildibeková, Chairperson of the Committee of Preschool and Secondary Education of the Ministry of Education and Science, to start her presentation. Thank you very much.
Hello, distinguished colleagues. I'm very pleased to welcome all of you. Greetings. This meeting is happening remotely via the ICT because the global epidemiological situation isn't really that well. Also, in general, I've been working in education for quite some time, for many years, and for some time with the Ministry of Education. And for some time, I was in charge of the ICT activities specifically. And all of the UNESCO meetings, I was actually present there. I'm very pleased to be present at this very webinar, because previously I was dealing with the technical IT issues. Now I'm mostly about the contents of those ICT technologies. So CASIE, I was also pleased to see colleagues from CASIE. I'm happy to welcome you all, and will be happy to share some of my experience. We all know that in the fourth term, there was this very quick shift in the system of education. Exactly, we had the spring break for our school students, and we quickly took some action, prepared some legal framework, analyzed and monitored the the technical components. Of course, the distance learning, remote education consists of several components. You need to take care of the contents, you need to take care of the teaching personnel, staff, or members of academia, and the internet connections quality of those also matters. So we performed a very profound analysis of the overall situation and how to proceed further. Of course, the platforms, well, some private companies responded to our calls. We started producing television lessons. You know, the Kazakhstan has a vast geographical landmass, and the density of population is very little compared to the other countries. So the internet coverage is different too. So we started producing the free, one of the companies started producing free of charge television lessons for schools. And basically, the teachers started using these television lessons. Then some of the private companies offered their free of charge platforms with their contents. This is what we did in the fourth term of the last year. Of course, we basically were trying to prepare for the better situations, for the worst case scenarios. We had two plans, Plan A and Plan B. And as you know, Kazakhstan started teaching in the remote format. Now, the regulatory framework, of course, we approved all of the specific orders from the ministry, methodological regulations, specific teaching formats, considering the preparedness of our children, specifically the primary school students. They can't learn things remotely on their own. So we proposed several formats. Format number one, it was the long distance learning, but the primary school students from 1 to 4th graders, we launched the regular classes, the minimum number of school students, up to 15 in each classroom, and basically with the proper observation of all of the sanitation requirements. Also launched, we piloted some of the schools with a number of children. These are little population rural schools, or even in some urban areas. So all private schools with a number of children up to from 5 up to 180 students total. Basically, these operate fully fledged. On a fully fledged, we have 3.4 million students. 2.5 million of those they study remotely. All the others study in the regular fashion and on-duty classes. This is how we call them. So basically, this is the current format we're using to do our education, school education. We use several platforms. Schools are able to choose the most suitable platform for them, the ones that we used back in the fourth term of the last year. With all of the streaming capabilities, for video conferencing, and also via the feedback is done via the other available means of these platforms. So our teachers, we basically prepared them 100%. All of our teachers were trained throughout August. We used various IT platforms for that. Specifically, these were the online conferences. We provide detailed teaching guidelines. Also, we had gone through, we have this whole network of Nazarbayev intellectual schools, and they developed this particular platform. And on this particular platform, we did the remote training for our school teachers. Plus, we also have a television channel. Well, we continued two of our national television channels. From 9 o'clock in the morning till 6 p.m., they would have the entire contents all the way from grade 1 to grade 11. Basically, this is like the extra resource. If children have they skip some classes or if some questions are really unclear, they can actually catch up with their lessons via the television. Plus the inclusive methods, we have some of our agencies who work with children with disabilities or special needs. So for those, we're also developed special platforms with the translation or interpretation if needed. Basically, we try to use this inclusive technology. Plus, we have some specific, easily affordable internet connection tariffs. So we also massively buying PC, computers, and laptops and distribute them. Basically, we're trying to equip all of our children, specifically low-income families, multi-children families, large families. We help them to deal with the infrastructure, with providing them with the proper computer equipment, hardware. We also checked what kind of equipment is available in schools, and additionally, via the national budget, both the local budget and national budget, we are basically procuring and supplying computers, laptops, specifically up to 500,000 children. Many of them are now getting this hardware specifically for temporary use throughout this long distance learning. So basically, these are some of the key areas of our work. Then the methodological training, methodological support by our institutional ministry-related institutions like the Academy of Education keeps constant communication with all of the teachers. Also use the social media to work with the school teachers throughout the entire school year. Okay, so I'm looking at my watch and my time is almost up. So I briefly highlighted some of the things we've done. Thank you.
Take 1 more minute, it's okay.
Okay, they set the timer for me, so I highlighted some of the key points, unless you have any questions, but I'll happy to take any questions. What I highlighted, training teachers, preparing the regulatory framework, doing the infrastructure, the internet connection, and development of the contents. These are 5 of the areas we concentrated on, so I highlighted all of this.
Very much, Ms. Milzibiekova. As I mentioned, for the questions, I will summarize them after the 4 presenters from Central Asia have finished. So we're moving on now to the Kyrgyz Republic. Ms. Zoya Pak, Chief Specialist, Department of School and Out-of-School Education of the Ministry of Education and Science. Ms. Pak, the floor is yours. Ms. Pak, we cannot hear you. Can you please? Okay, great.
Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги.
Hello, distinguished colleagues. Kyrgyzstan is here online. We are very happy to welcome you at our today's webinar. Well, the topic of this discussion is quite vital and quite relevant because COVID-19 made its own adjustments in the whole organization of the schooling process. It basically forced all of the countries to take urgent measures in order to not to interrupt the educational process, in order to ensure the continuity of education, and basically also to remind us that we are responsible for quality of that education ultimately. Of course, in the system of education of Kyrgyzstan, we also made some adjustments to our system. Those were specifically designed to ensure the continuity or uninterrupted educational process. I just would like to tell you that back in March, when the lockdown was announced and the emergency situation was proclaimed, well, basically the Ministry of Education developed 2 plans, the anti-crisis plan and post-anti-crisis plan. So in order to enable teachers, students, and parents to actually be able to act jointly, to be able to get some systemic education. So I just would like to note that in this process of education, we involve about basically 79,000 school teachers, 79,000 school teachers in all of our schools. Not because we were caught off guard, but we understood that there might be a situation, there would be a situation from which we need to come out dry. So not all of our teachers were always prepared to work on this remote fashion and actually to do or maintain some feedback with the students. So basically, in the form of emergency measures, we delivered some of the training workshops for our teachers. This is number 1 thing we did. Number 2, that we specifically, within 1 month time, and we had it also at the end of the school year, because we started producing video lessons or video classes. while the capital was under lockdown, we were producing lessons, specifically 20-minute classes, 20-minute lessons based on the school curriculum in order not to cause any lagging and this educational process. And we realized that in order to ensure the proper feedback, in order to enable our students to get the proper volume of new knowledge, we did some monitoring. Monitoring to ensure that all the families have TV sets, because children could get the maximum access to these classes via simple television sets. How many computers they have at home, mobile phones, smartphones, etc. So basically, this particular monitoring was accomplished, and together with the local governance authorities, local authorities, we involved them, asked them to help children with the low-income families, large families, help teachers who were lacking modern communication means. So specifically, this particular piece of work was done, and the discounts were provided by some of our telecommunication companies, Megacom and Oshka, those who are the internet or other service providers. Well, basically, first of all, the agency that was most motivated was the Ministry of Education, people in charge of the local departments of education, the local authorities, and the school principals. Of course, parents were very motivated to continue the teaching process, educational process, and children too, students. But if I voice some of the statistics in the school, we have 283 schools. We have 1.3 million school students, 1.31,300,478 children. So basically, we propose this mixed type of education process, such as demoing or playing back video lessons via televisions. Our sponsors helped us out. We used several studios to produce these television lessons, and also continued education based on a flexible schedule that was created by every school, compiled by every school with the account of the television lesson schedules. Of course, some of the other difficulties were some of the schools lacked the internet connections, but just over this summertime period, through the lockdown, we took all the measures to ensure the maximum access to the internet for schools. And as of September 1st in this country, well, in Kyrgyzstan, 99% of all the schools were able to get proper internet access. Maybe in some of these schools there is just one particular connection, but still we asked the local authorities to help us out and actually to make this connection available to all of the classes to enable the whole schools to use those. So I just would like to note that there's video lessons or television lessons. These were produced in highly extreme situations. But anyway, we managed to mobilize our school teachers in order to be able to demonstrate these school lessons for all elements of the system of education: preschool education, primary school, middle school, high school. And again, what I'm saying that we did face certain difficulties, but we managed to overcome them. Not 100%, of course, but to some extent we were able to accomplish this. Again, I just would like to emphasize that what was important for us is to make sure that teachers are ready to do this long-distance learning thing. And through the time we were trying to produce those lessons throughout the summer holidays, we managed to deliver various trainings in the online mode, and via various streams we ensured about 14,000 teachers were trained, covered about 14,000 teachers with training, with a qualification upgrade training. And now these courses continue, and they're scheduled for the whole school year ahead of us, because we understand that quite possibly we'll need to be living with COVID for quite some time yet. We're also working on this thing to make sure that the local authorities continue helping us in the future, trying to provide us with the TV sets, providing us with the tablet, PCs, smartphones for both teachers and students. And some of our telecommunication companies, they kindly provided us with the service access discounts. And throughout the May, they provided the free internet connections. So we really appreciate that. I just would like to know that the local authorities really cared to make these happen, and some of our sponsors, local businessmen, and the parents community were really cared to help low-income families, and this was done specifically. And based on the numbers, you can see that we seriously reduced the deficit of television sets in the families, smartphones in the families, tried to provide all, but in the city of Bishkek, well, doing this feedback is quite complicated because we have some of the classes with 48, 50 children at a time, but we're trying to find some ways out of this. What else I'd like to note? Well, in order to ensure some feedback, to make this feedback happen, or to ensure the proper access to the educational resources. Again, we first of all delivered the whole series of workshops. This is one. And number two, we developed all sorts of the instructions, orders, manuals in order to organize the long-distance learning, remote learning, with the feedback component. We also organized the psychological support for both school students and their parents. So all of these local documents, those were directed to the district, city, and provincial centers of education, the territorial educational authorities. These would notify this information to the school principals, and school principals would notify this information to all the parents and students. So what was important for us when doing this educational process, we wanted to make sure we comply with the psychological safety and information safety of children. In order to ensure the maximum safety and security, we organized the whole series of educational and electoral platforms. These platforms are listed here. So these platforms were recommended by the Ministry of Education and Science of the Kyrgyz Republic. I think this is also very important because content was supposed to be filled with those necessary materials and resources that were actually vital for the educational process. This is what else I would like to add. At the beginning of the school year, right now, the real-time education is available to the primary school students, first grade students, basically, of course, with the maintaining social distancing and sanitation rules. First grade are now, they study in the regular fashion. At this point of time, the pandemic is declining, it's on the decline. So we're asking our emergency response authorities to allow us the gradual implementation of the regular school teaching for the school students through the next of the year. I'm just finishing just a very nice point in order to motivate our teachers who happen to be in these very difficult working conditions. The Ministry of Education organized a special contest called Digital Pedagogy, based on the results of which some of the best school teachers in the country were basically awarded with the special badges, the excellent educationists of the Kyrgyz Republic, honorable certificates, and valuable gifts. And in order to be able to better train for the school year, we developed the methodological guidelines in order to enable teachers to ensure quality and professional production of video lessons and organizing some feedback.
Of course, it's understandable that these are the main difficulties that we were facing in our republic, and I believe that in other republics of our ex-USSR countries, there are similar problems. And of course, we would love our follow-up work be successful and all our relatives keep safe. Thank you very much.
Ms. Pak. I do see everybody's questions, but I will address them to the speakers when all of them have finished presenting. So now we move on to the next speaker from Uzbekistan. Unfortunately, the official speaker was not able to join today, but our colleague, education specialist from UNESCO Tashkent office will present about Uzbekistan's achievements so far. And if any of the Uzbekistan participants here would like to add anything, we can open the floor to you afterwards. So without further ado, Mr. Namazov, I give you the floor.
Thank you, Auken. Can you hear me well? Okay, so short information about what Uzbekistan has achieved since COVID lockdown. In March 16, 2020, when all the schools were closed, all the school provision was conducted through online TV. So Uzbekistan made available 5
Communication link is very poor. We can hardly hear.
TV broadcasting started early morning from 8:30 until the late. Of course, all video lessons were made available through local internet portals like Mover, maybe internationals want YouTube, Kudalik, which is well familiar for Central Asian countries, and online Maktab, Maktab in schools, as well as the most popular social media like Telegram. Next slide, please. Also, all the school curricula covered like 17 school subjects were broadcast over television, and over 3,800 video lessons were shot by this time. It's like in average 100 video lessons are prepared daily. These video lessons are prepared in 3 languages, Uzbek, in Russian, and in Herbal language. Of course, enabling these video lessons for the children with special needs, for those children who has a hearing and disabilities difficulties, sign language interpretation were followed for these video lessons. Of course, and for those children who has a visual impairments, these video lessons were like followed with audio support. And of course, for the material and spiritual engagement, encouragement of teachers, government allocated monetary incentives for teachers, and of course, also several types of recognition that made available for those teachers. And there were nearly 200 best performing teachers nationally were recruited and engaged for the TV lesson preparation. Can we move to the next slide, please? Next slide, please. So in order to reach those children, of these online learning platforms beyond the lesson provision, such as Coursera, globally well known. Under this Coursera online educational platform, nearly 8,000 teachers will upgrade their professional skills. 5,000 school leavers also gained the necessary skills. 19,000 of lessons were provided online through this Coursera platform, and nearly 10,000 teachers received the international certificates, which means that they completed fully Coursera courses. And also, there were a couple of projects, like 1 million programs, in which the government prepared more than 5,000 programmers to code the computer programs, let's say. Also, there were like other market the educates platforms made available for children for young children to see or various animation according to their age groups. In Uzbekistan, we have an internet platform, maybe we call it a portal, Kitob Uz. Kitob means a book, in which government made available over 2,000 books in electronic format. for the home readings. And also there are government hosted, ministry hosted web portals in which various types of videos are available in local languages. Next slide, please. In order to reach rural areas, in order to reach those children who are unreached with online learning, government made the utmost effort to connect those rural schools with internet and increase the accessibility of schools for the digital content. In 2016, more schools internet, but by 2020, 50% schools are connected to broadband internet. So the ambitious plan 2022 to connect all. Next slide, please. To enable information exchange in various types and for efficient management of the education system, the government introduced a number of information systems. In this slide, you can see 27 information systems has been introduced by now. They are like for hosting the digital textbook methodological guide for teachers, collecting statistics about the schools. You know, well, Khan Academy is available in Uzbek national languages in Uzbekistan, and employability in the education sector is also available through online. Next slide, please. And also, there are several information systems like Kundaik to register students and evaluate and monitor learning achievements is also conducted online. We call it Attestat system to provide students with attestation diplomas online without engaging, without avoiding the personal interaction during this COVID. Also, many students completed the school Olympiads, academic Olympiads online. School admissions in the first grade also conducted online through this information system, and then government is introducing overarching holistic information system to middle education sector. So these are basically about Uzbekistan. In short, if my colleagues from Uzbekistan has any comments or addition, I will be happy to hear from them.
Thank you so much, Bakhtiyor. If any of the Uzbekistan colleagues would like to add anything, please feel free to type in the chat box. But for now, I will move on to the final presentation from Central Asia, from the Republic of Tajikistan, Mr. Mahmad Murod Bobomurodov, Chief Specialist of Preschool and Secondary General Education Department of the Ministry of Education and Science. Mr. Bobomurodov, please go ahead. Sorry, I cannot hear you.
Do you hear me? My mic is on. Do you hear me? My mic is on.
Sorry, we cannot hear you.
Everything is on. My mic is on. My cam is on.
Would you have a mic? Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Do you hear me now? Yes, we do. I don't hear you.
Please go ahead.
Distinguished friends, I'm sorry for this delay. but due to technical reasons, we did not manage to join you on time. But anyway, we are really very glad to meet you again. This is not our first meeting, and we know that at this point of time, the problem that the whole world is facing, unfortunately, did not pass by our republic. And you know that at the end of April, the Republican headquarters decided to lock down all the educational facilities in the Republic of Tajikistan. And not only secondary and preschool facilities were locked down, the whole system of education was locked down. And I have to say that it's a great number of school students that was locked down. It's more than 2 million people. Therefore, we started facing a lot of difficulties. I know that nobody was ready for this type of lockdown, and we started working out various video lessons. And you know that our country is mountainous, therefore it was very difficult for us to make sure that everybody will have access to them. So we started producing digital lessons, and we started disseminating these lessons all over the Republic of Tajikistan. So we have already recorded more than 1,000 video lessons, and we are planning to increase this number to 2,000 or even more. But in my opinion, it's not a way out, because we don't have a face-to-face contact with our students. Our Republican headquarters have decided to resume the lessons and to get back to schools as normal. Of course, it was associated, such decision was associated with huge risk, but on the 16th of August anyway, all our students got back to schools. Why on the 17th? It's because the 2 weeks before September 1 were used for let's say, repetition of the material that our children missed in May. And this is the reason for which we are back to school. So all our students are back to schools starting the 16th of August this year. And we are trying to raise awareness of the population, and several monitoring groups have already visited different educational facilities of the Republic of Tajikistan to explain how to conduct the classes, what material might be used. And of course, to this end, we are also trying to raise awareness on hygiene requirements, on the use of antiseptics. We are also measuring temperature. We are urging on everybody to wear a face mask at all times, to keep the social distance, etc. And of course, we keep moving around the Republic of Tajikistan, and we continue explaining to both the teachers and the students on how to correctly behave under such difficult conditions. So that, nevertheless, we believe that if there is a need for us to switch back to virtual classes, we are planning to buy service. But since we did not, we were facing some financial problems, these services are not yet bought. But in 5 regions, we are planning to procure this service that will enable us to get in touch, to secure connectivity with remote regions of our country. And I hope that we will be able to resolve this problem in the upcoming months. Such needs that were urged by COVID pandemic were pretty unexpected. And of course, not all of the educational facilities had sufficient connectivity, letting alone every family or every student. And of course, it was associated with a lot of problems for us. And this is the reason for which we are trying to make sure that every school will have connectivity. We are providing advice on the IT resources to schools, and we are training our teachers, and we are improving their ICT skills, and we are improving their knowledge on distance learning. As to the measures that were proposed by the government of our country, there is a national plan on COVID response. There are some communication campaigns that we have already launched at schools, because there is a long-term and short-term impact on the educational sector. And we are developing video lessons and digital platforms. Jointly with the Ministry of Education of Tajikistan, Ministry of Healthcare and Social Protection, the partners on development, all of us, we are trying to do everything possible to make sure that in case of the second wave of COVID, we will be able to contact our students closer. Next slide, please. As I have already mentioned, and probably I will reiterate again on the fact that the development of video lessons, especially for the leavers from schools, those who are now in grade 9 and 11, and the development of the digital platform was helpful for us, but it did not resolve all our problems. And this is the reason for which now we are developing the pilot, and we are launching the mobile application Maktab Mobile. And hopefully we will be able to use it online and offline for alternative support for the teachers and students and their parents. Challenges that we are facing now, as I have already mentioned before, of course, internet access is not available everywhere, since we are a mountainous country, and hopefully as soon as the server is available, this problem is going to be resolved. This is what we are planning and expecting from the service procurement. Another problem is, of course, a very low level of awareness among the teachers and the parents. Probably the students are much more knowledgeable in this regard about the ways and methods of using ICT, and that's the reason for which we have to conduct a series of courses of training for the teachers to teach them on how to best use ICT and other digital technologies. And of course, our ICT infrastructure is pretty weak, and the equipment is not always available at schools. And all these two reasons are very closely interrelated with each other, because if the internet is not available, internet access is not available, no one will be able to use their mobile devices. And of course, it does not yield any success in the development. Thank you very much. Yeah, we had some difficulties at the very beginning because we did not manage to join your webinar. Hopefully in the future, we will not be facing this difficulty. Thank you.
So much to all of the presenters. I think it's amazing to see the diversity of approaches to resolving the challenges during this time. You received quite a few questions. I will start with the question for Kazakhstan. Could Kazakhstan please share what kind of action should be taken for rural areas, especially for those that have very poor internet connection? And in some auls, villages, the cellular connection is also not good. What should they be doing? Could Ms. Mayra Milzibekova respond to the question, please? or any of the other speakers? Would you have any response to this question? Ms. Melzibekova, you're muted.
Okay, yes. I just couldn't hear you, couldn't hear the question. Can you repeat the question, please?
To support rural and remote areas, especially AULs, where internet connection is not very good or cellular connection is not very good. What action should be taken?
Yes, some of the rural areas, well, normally they do education in a regular fashion. Kids attend schools. Well, this is what I told you, where we have the poor internet connection. We mostly rely on the television lessons and the feedback. For the feedback purposes, we use some remote technologies. The remote teaching format is divided into simultaneous, as we do it right now live, and asymultaneous, which is not in real time. You can actually do without the high-speed internet. There is this special platform called Kundelek. Uzbekistan showed their own platform. Based on this Kundelek platform, you can actually download classes or educational contents. The teachers can create this task or lessons in a Word file or some other files. They can make references to either teaching television classes, or extracurricular materials with all of the explanations, and they basically attach this information. This is without the streaming possibilities, without being live, not live, but downloadable. And now students can actually do the classes, use the sources. This is the kind of feedback we use. So this is for the remote areas, totally remote, where the COVID situation is good. They do schooling of the regular fashion. Kids go to school. But if they do any remote teaching, this is asymultaneous, not simultaneous, non-simultaneous teaching format.
Question to you from Bhutan, I think. How did you manage to teach students who did not have TV?
Well, at this point of time, television, well, basically, we don't know the areas which do not have any television. Those who had some poor connections or uh, national television channels are available almost everywhere. Well, we had some of the villages where they didn't have any national television, not the TV sets themselves, but any connection to the national television channels. So basically, we created the lists of those school students and teachers who didn't have access to these national television channels with schooling classes. We ensured the connection. So for this reason, we actually used the local television channels who basically rebroadcasted these national channels with class.
How did you manage to provide the online training to the teachers? What kind of training did you provide to them in terms of pedagogy or content?
Yes, well, qualification upgrade was handled in several different formats. Specifically, the methodology. First of all, methodological recommendations will provide a very detailed description of all of the educational formats, like remote education, this is simultaneous, non-simultaneous, teaching. Basically, via video conferences, we would invite the IT companies who provide platforms for the use. So basically, using the live webinars, we basically showed or demoed this whole system. And this is number one. Number two, for non-simultaneous format, Nazarbayev Intellectual Schools, they launched this non-simultaneous continuous education courses for teachers. Teachers would go to the specific websites, go through this training, and could obtain certificates. All of this was done remotely via the ICT, different formats, live broadcast, live webinars, non-live, simultaneous, non-simultaneous.
The next question is students' learning and promote them to the next grade. Could Ms. Pak elaborate on that, please? If you can unmute your microphone.
Спасибо за вопрос.
Yes, thank you very much for this question. I'll try to respond to it. Well, due to the fact that we had some pandemics, we canceled the transfer exams for grades 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The final evaluation was done for the first time in the specific mode when, again, with in a strict adherence with the sanitation norms, we created this expert boards for specific subjects. And based on the final grades of students from grades 9 to 11th, with the account of various written works, different credits, portfolio of those students, we specifically use the final grades. And we use these final grades to put them into the year-end certificates. But we realized it wasn't real, like the real mode, and it's clear that the objectivity of those grades wasn't really there at all times. We basically committed to this, that we did this in favor of children, so the grades were slightly better than they had to be. Like if it was like 4.6, we used the grade of 5, so the final grade was 5, the top grade in Kyrgyzstan 3.6, this would be 4. This is the second best grade in Kyrgyzstan. Well, it wasn't really a conventional grading format in putting those final details into their teaching certificates, but we had to commit to this in order not to undermine health and psychology of children, in order not to invite them for the final year-end exams. We had to commit to this methodology.
To Uzbekistan. Mr. Bakhtiyor Namazov and other Uzbekistani colleagues may be able to respond. There are lots of interesting initiatives from Uzbekistan taken during this time. Do you mean that all of these were achieved within this short span of time? Please unmute your mic to respond.
Yeah, thank you. Wait.
Sorry, we have a hard time hearing you. Bakhtiyor, could you possibly respond in the chat box instead, just to make sure that we receive your response? Okay. Thank you. Mr. Namazov, he will respond to your question in the chat box. And now I would like to move on to our next set of presenters. The first presentation will be made by Mr. Jaewon Cho, who is a program officer at CARIS, which is the Korea Education and Research Information Service. As you may know, CARIS has been a long-term supporter of CASIE events and other ICT and education projects in the region, having worked with several Central Asian countries to date. As Mr. Cho currently coordinates the technical advice program at CARIS, he will provide an overview of what the organization has done with Central Asia so far and showcase how various government agencies from different countries, such as Korea and Central Asia, can partner with each other to come out with relevant outputs and educational interventions. So Mr. Cho, over to you now.
Okay, thank you, Alkin, for your kind introduction. Can you hear me well? Okay, good morning and afternoon, everyone. My name is Jaewon Cho from CARIS, and I'm honored to join this event as a presenter, and would like to express sincere gratitude to Mr. Shigeru Aoyagi, Director from UNESCO Bangkok Office, and also Ms. Krista Pickett, Director from UNESCO Managing Office. So today I'll be presenting with the title of Intergovernment Partnership to Support National ICT and Education Development in Central Asia. And I'll be focusing on the Technical Advice Program, which is one of the key partnership programs run by CARIS. So today, I'll cover the past, present, and the future of this project with Central Asian countries. I hope I can share some useful information. For the start, this is the fancy picture of CASIE. I use it all the time for making presentation. The building you can see from the left-hand side is the server room where national education data in Korea is stored. So it's a highly secured place. And the building on the right-hand side is the office building where around
Mr.
300
Cho,
people.
I'm
Yes.
very sorry. Can you please show your presentation? We don't see it.
I thought I was sharing mine. Can you see now? Sorry. Right. So, yeah, this is the fancy picture I was about to show you about the CASIE. This is how it looks like. And yeah, so CASIE is the MOE agency established in 1999, dedicated to the development of ICT in education. And I have a short time given today, so I'll be very quick introducing the key services managed by CASIE. So first is Education Information Service on the first box, where we have the EduNet Clear and Cyber Learning System, and also digital textbook, which is online learning platform allowing the online distance learning in Korea. Then we have Education Information Management System, providing service to all school level teachers, students, and parents. So we call it NICE, and it takes a great portion in CASIE organization. And next one, we have Academic Research Information Service. It's a service providing academic resources in online, targeting higher education. And CASIE is also conducting a wide range of future education research, including topics such as digital literacy and adaptive learning, which are gaining more and more importance nowadays and also in the future. And finally, CASIE works together with international community in the field of ICT in education, often in collaboration with international organizations such as UNESCO, which is why we're here today. And the one I'd like to say stay focused today is the Technical Advice Program. So as you can see, Technical Advice Program is a single-year capacity building program with one partner country, and it started from 2006. Till 2014, the number of partner countries differs, but from 2015, it's set to supporting one country only, concentrating all the consortium assets, including the budget and time, to make the best outcome possible. So the main activities we're doing in this program are scoping missions, interviewing with key stakeholders in partner countries, and holding working group meetings with experts both in partner countries and in Korea. We worked together with people in Serbia last year. And the final outcome of the program is to publish a policy roadmap report reflecting the subject area worked for the given year. But this format is also set from 2017, and before that, it was more of a general approach covering the comprehensive ICT education area in partner countries. So I'll explain more in detail from next slide, starting with Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan. So in 2014, the partner country was Kazakhstan. CASIE worked with the Minister of Education and Science. The activities conducted was scoping mission, working group meetings, interview with key stakeholders, conducting ICT readiness survey, and visit to some key places. So after conducting the scoping mission and the interview, we found out that Kazakhstan had actually relatively high level of ICT education readiness compared to other developing regions. And I believe it is because of its fast-growing economy. But at the same time, Kazakhstan was experiencing growing digital divide between urban and rural areas and needed more national support to teacher development. So after this scoping mission, what CASIE's advice from the report was to develop an ICT teacher training program by developing ICT integrated teacher learning model, and to establish an institution for ICT in education like CASIE for supporting longer-term ICT education policy-making process, and also for content development in Kazakhstan language and in their own context. Because in 2014, when we visited there, most education contents were important from imported from Russia and other Eastern European countries, which was not very ideal situation. And finally, for the long-term goal, national online learning system development was highly recommended in a way to solve education and digital divide between urban and rural areas. I added up some of the picture taken. And next year, the project conducted with Kyrgyzstan in 2015 was quite similar. With Kyrgyzstan, UNESCO Bangkok office kindly joined together, and after the scoping mission, it was found that the more effort was in need in developing ICT infrastructure and also more support to teachers with systematic training program provided together. For example, in-service teachers had one mandatory training in every 5 years, which was good start, but many were doing at their own expenses with low salary level. So this was one of the obstacles in developing teacher competency and in consequences holding back long-term education development. So the key policy advice made was to develop e-textbook project with more policy and budget input in rural areas where ICT infra level does not meet the requirement to use the e-textbook, and to enlarge innovative school program support from 100 schools in 2015 to expanding to more schools, particularly in rural areas, and to support continuous teacher training program by developing ICT competency standards, and finally to develop national guideline for the use of ICT in education in primary and secondary education. So from 2017 with Uzbekistan, the technical advice program was set to address one single theme instead of covering the general areas. And this was the first year I was involved in the program, so I have more direct understanding from here. The objective was to develop teacher training modules based on ICT competency standards for teachers in each 3 ministries of education. So as a result, CARIE supported developing 13 modules each aligned with the ICT competency requirement standards pre-developed in Uzbekistan with the help of UNESCO. So this is the sample module I captured. This is module 3 using title with using ICT for teacher-centered activities. As you can see from the screen, from the left-hand side, you can find the course description and the target competencies required, course objectives, hours needed, and course outline. I checked recently and found out that this module developed are actually being used now by the teacher training institution in Uzbekistan, as well as some being used in pre-service teacher education level, which is what we expected. And in this year, we are working again with Uzbekistan. I know some of the participants might bring this question. We work together with the Minister of Public Education and ITSM, Innovation, Technology and Strategy Center under MOE, and also with UNESCO Tashkent office. Because of COVID-19 situation, working group meetings were first held in online to support design the implementation of the smart education project in Uzbekistan. I think the part of the program was mentioned by Bhaktiol before. The key idea of this smart education project is to digitize all 9,942 public schools in Uzbekistan. So after being hit by COVID-19, most schools were closed in Uzbekistan, like in many other countries, and the need for implementing online distance learning systems stood out. So as part of the project, other than equipping schools with digital devices, Maktabuz education platform is being developed, which has the function of interactive online classes, online grading system, uploading self-learning materials, and tools for teacher training. So we expect by the time of its development, it would connect teachers, students in rural areas, setting the foundation for a national online distance learning system. And what CARIS will do is to provide a policy roadmap, as we did before in the past, in detail for how to implement the project in each phase. So I'm running out of time, so this is my last slide. As a conclusion and the next step, after years of cooperation with countries in Central Asian region, most countries were facing with the same situation, that is a growing education and digital divide in rural and remote areas. So we found that this is a common challenge. So, and sadly, we're living in a COVID era, so preventing a learning gap and education crisis is vital, and I strongly believe the online distance learning could be the best answer, and this was effectively proved in Korea recently, and Dr. John will present about this in next presentation. So CARIS will continue its partnership with Central Asian countries with technical advice program and also CASIE to support online distance learning in rural and remote areas. So I wish my short presentation met the expectation from the audience, and I'd like to have any questions today and also through email. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cho. I see there are already questions coming in for you, but we will wait for the last presentation to then address both of the speakers from CARIS. And now our final speaker for the webinar will be Dr. Sanju John, who wears many hats. He's the Director of the Higher Education and Academic Research International Cooperation Department at CARIS. He is also the Director General of the ASEAN Cyber University Project Secretariat, Advisor on Distance Education Advisory Committee of the Ministry of Education, and Adjunct Professor at Gyeongbuk National University. He was also on the Expert Committee for the President's Council on Informatization Strategies. Due to his vast expertise in the Republic of Korea, he will make a presentation on behalf of the Korean Ministry of Education on the country's response to COVID through online and distance education, and highlight the public-private partnerships that were built during this time to support underprivileged students and provide an enabling environment to teachers. So with that, Dr. John, the floor is yours. Please remember to share your screen for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Auken, for my long introduction. No. Can you hear me? Yes, from now on, I will start my presentation following my colleague Jaewon Cho presentation. I skip my introduction. First of all, I'm honored to present at Central Asia Symposium on ICT in Education 2020 webinar. My title is Systemic Teacher Support and Public and Private Partnership for Underprivileged Students of Korea. My presentation consists of 4 parts. In the beginning of COVID-19, all school was closed, but Korea succeeded in quarantine by a democratic way. So Korea rate of deaths to those of confirmed case are very low. In Korea, we have 10,000 schools and 17 metropolitan and province office, and 7 of them are special and metropolitan city. So 10 province have rural area like CIS country. And Korea also more than 70% are mountain. I would like to introduce the online school opening decision-making process and preparation in Korea in March. Korea used to start school in March. The Ministry of Education and the Center for Disease Control closely cooperated and delayed the school opening. The government have decided open school by online class with 3 steps. After 2 weeks of postpone the school opening, and 2 weeks later, online schooling was announced and preparation began. From now on, second part of my presentation, for systematic online school opening, we prepared for the following courses. First, the public infrastructure for distance education was expanded. Second, supported the teachers' capacity building. Third, created teaching and learning content. When we start distance learning, we have to use the online education platform. So we prepare 2 platforms for the K-12 online school opening. Our organization, CASIE, was in charge of elementary school, and EBS was in charge of middle and high school. CASIE already has various online learning platforms and digital textbook and education management information system and etc. And EBS is a public broadcasting corporation in charging for educational TV and radio. The biggest reason for choosing online classes is that almost home in Korea can access the internet, even though they are live in rural area. In order for all 6 million students to access at the same time, the CASIE e-learning site, which was used by 470,000 people, but we had to be expanded by 7 times within 2 weeks. And since the first to the second grader of elementary school are not familiar with the digital device, so we urgently organized the EBS broadcasting. A lot of content was needed for the online class. CASIE had about 5,500 contents, and EBS had about 43,000 contents. The Ministry of Education approved e-book and digital textbook developed so far. At this time, the regulation of copyright was relaxed so that teachers can access copyrighted materials. There are 495 pilot schools for online learning. Teachers and school voluntarily created and operated various services, school-owned and teachers-owned like that. For online class, the most important factor is teachers' capacity. So a community was created with one representative teacher in every school. Here we communicate directly with the Ministry of Education and CASIE and EBS to share their thought and current situation. On April 21st, approximately 1.7 million and 530,000 contents developed by teachers were created just in 2 weeks. We support school-owned site to share information related to setting up management, impactfully holding classes online, and provide guidelines for online class for teachers. And also we provide 10 rules. For example, attending rule and evaluation rule, like that. I will explain about type of classes and how to use content at the time. Class type are operated real-time interactive class and content-oriented class and task-oriented class. As you know, real-time interactive class use video conferencing tool. For example, Zoom, WebEx, Google, MS Teams, like that. Content-oriented class is student to watch video, recorded lecture, or learning content through CASIE and EBS. And third part is public and private partnership case. First, personal device is essential for online classes. So government 280,000 students applied to rent digital device as April 16th. This time, private company like LG Electronic, Samsung Electronic, KB Bank, etc. We cooperate with private company to resolve digital divide. And also, we have three major mobile company. They agreed to provide zero rating system for data used on educational website such as digital textbook, EduNet, and eHospital. eHospital means education place. We face three challenges for disadvantaged student. First and second year of elementary school students were not familiar with the digital device, so support educational content with the EBS broadcasting channel. And students from multicultural familiar encounter language barriers, so give information material in various languages like Vietnam. And students with disability had less access to online media, so we provide special learning packet and material with home visit. For example, we include the subtitle in content for hearing impatient. Second, we support for students in rural and remote area, providing learning package, and also opening computer lab to students who do not have access online course. Third, in order to reinforcing communication among online classes stakeholders, learning helpline to give immediately feedback to teachers, parents, and students to address any technical difficulty. To support online class for students and teachers, many private companies such as NBP Cloud Company and LG CNS company, so that they can stand current connection of all students in Korea. Honestly, almost parents and teacher were stressed from technical difficulty. Finally, I conclusion is as well. Follow. The most important thing is that all stakeholders have a consensus that education should not stop. Although facing a crisis, this chance should be used to opportunity for educational innovation. In order to provide AI education in preparation for the fourth industrial revolution, it must be based on platform and big data. Although it has been equipped with the coronavirus, it must be developed as a golden opportunity to implement intelligent, personalized learning. We again realized the importance of international cooperation due to coronavirus. Therefore, joint effort should be further strengthened to solve the educational issue of each country. Lastly, I hope that my presentation has helped you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. John. We received once again many questions. So I will now direct them to both of you, and you can choose which questions you will respond to. First question, what actions were taken in the post-COVID period for students?
Pardon? You mean what kind of action government to
Yes, what did the government do in Korea in the for the post-COVID period for the education of students?
As you know, Korea already equipped the ICT-based e-learning situation, but some students and parents not prepared for distance learning. So, and also we had to develop the infrastructure, hardware and network, because all students access at the same time. So government invested the hardware and network system. So CASIE developed the e-learning platform and content. That is the first government task to prepare online class.
Thank you. I think there were two questions to Mr. Cho. I will combine them into one as they seem to be asking a similar question.
Okay.
What was the follow-up you conducted with countries once you finished the technical program for each year, for example, for Kazakhstan? Is there any follow-up planned? And while the participants see the value of this great program, how do you ensure the sustainability of this initiative?
Right, that is actually a very good question, and this is the part we really need the improvement in this program, because, as I said, this is a consortium program with a very small limited amount of budget and the period. So this is just my excuse, but I just want people to know that we're trying every year to expand this budget and this period. We're trying to work together, Ministry of Education of Korea, to make it more sustainable, and also trying to bridge together with the other projects together. But yes, I just have to say that we're trying to make it sustainable every year. But so far, it's staying at 1-year program. And for the question to the follow-up of the Kazakhstan, we really don't have much follow-up, and I'm sorry to say about that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cho. I think the next question is more for Mr. John. What would be your policy advice to narrow the gap in ICT use in urban and rural areas?
In fact, after open online school in Korea, happen to get for student, each student the performance. So government worry about that. But from the survey result, the parents and teacher know student have a competency of self-directed learning using the ICT. So if it's very difficult to develop the infrastructure, if you have a environment to use the ICT in school, then you can get a good chance to upgrade student competency, including the ICT literacy and creativity and self-directed learning and like that. So I recommend using the online class in post COVID.
Yes, thank you. One more question, Dr. John. The question is, does Korea also have rural or remote schools? And
Yes.
if Korea does, how is the internet connection there? Does everybody have access to internet and cellular service?
In Korea, every student can, every home can access to internet because, and also they have used mobile internet, and they have almost students have their device, BYOD, but I already mentioned 280,000 students didn't have a device, so government and private company rent the device. So if CIS country case, also they have to cooperate with the private company to use the device in school and home. That's it.
And question to both presenters. How did the Korean families react to online and distance education? Because there was a lot of misunderstanding and resentment from the parents in Central Asia.
I'm first to answer. People open the online class. Student have a living to same as the vacation. So they don't have a learning in home. So parents worry that situation. And also we in Korea, the very important thing is the entrance exam. So third grade in high school student parents worry they don't have to high score at the exam. So they want to go to school, their child, but elementary school parents, they should support to their child. So they, some case hate to online class. But almost parents like online class rather than stop education.
Okay.
Okay. Jaewon.
Okay, I'd like to say that we definitely need online education learning, but I also have to say that online learning education is not panacea. It doesn't fix everything. It needs great care because in Korea, there is a growing learning gap already witnessed after this being implemented. So for example, students with great care from their family members will obviously achieve a better education. So there has to be great care in policy design for better implement this online learning system. So I think I have to say this. Yeah.
Thank you so much. There are many more questions, but considering that we're very already delayed, I just want to address one last question to Karis. Do you think that COVID in the long term, will it promote the ICT in education agenda and priority in the region?
In my opinion, we faced already fourth industrial revolution. So after 2045, we get the singularity. So we come together. We live together with AI. So even though we suffer from COVID-19, we make an opportunity to change our educational new paradigm. So Korea and other countries do best to make ICT infrastructure and competency of teacher and student.
Okay, thank you so much. There are more questions in the chat box. Thank you, Jaewon, already addressed some of them. Actually, both Dr. Jang and Mr. Cho agreed to share their emails with you in the chat box. If you have any follow-up questions or proposals, please write to them directly. I saw Tajikistan already asked whether they can be supported. Please contact our CARIS colleagues. With that, I will now very quickly allow Mr. Nini Tong, Program Specialist for Policy and Planning at UNESCO Bangkok, to summarize his key observations now. Mr. Tong, please go ahead.
Thank you, Okan. I would say it was very interesting and enriching discussion we have today. And sure, I think that with UNESCO, we will share the presentation. You can have it more detailed now, but may I now allow me to take some kind of the key takeaway from today's discussion, which will be very helpful for us to think together also. So I think we have a several country presentation, the Kazakhstan, then Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and then also Tajikistan also, plus also CARIS and also our Korea experience also. So now allow me to take some takeaway from our colleague from Kazakhstan presentation. I would say that from the Kazakhstan presentation, we could take the country has been taking when the COVID has happened, country has been taking the analysis quite quickly and also respond to different immediate the action also. So which has been done also. then such as the various measures like the free TV, and then also the online platform, remote learning, teacher training, and also try to address and look at them bridge together between urban and rural, which is very important also. Then we would say that, you know, the country has been reached to 3.4 to 5 million the online student population, which has been remotely be able to manage to bring on board. So also I would see that, you know, also there's a strong commitment to what the country as a government, as also the other stakeholders are ensuring the support to the low-income family country. Also, and for the addressing this, also supporting the relevant material, and there are also device and laptop also, which is, I would say, this is one of the collective effort the country have been doing, and then the quick response. So that is what I take away from the Kazakhstan presentation. Looking at the Kyrgyzstan, also it's a one key point, which it's a very important for us to remind that, you know, that we are responsible for ensuring the quality education, which are first reflected in the presentation also. And then, and I mean also the Kyrgyzstan, you know, they are very highly responsive and quickly to start producing different video lessons, and also during the COVID lockdown quite shortly also. And then try to reach I would say the 17,000 school teachers to train together to have more required training. And then follow by the video classes, and also even in each class, you know, they're very dedicated and web plan has been introduced also. And they also try to monitor all the family, or the availability of their device and, you know, facilities, so that, and then try to complement and implement for those together with the strong partner and private sector. Also, we can see that this working together with the different stakeholders, particularly the public, private, and also to provide the facility to the low-income family also. And then also we see the quite important role played by the local government authority to have the family who are taking lacking the modern communication means. So which we not only is some of the solution is to address in the locally. So we have of course global issue about how to respond and how to ensure the education for all children, but there's a local solution has been addressed and advised and provide to them, which is we should learn also. And then also it's a great to see that the remote learning material has been taken into account not only the typical education content, also psychosocial support, and also for students, parents, and also which are mainly available on live radio platform. These are one of the takeaways we could I could look at it. And then also Kyrgyzstan, they come out with kind of different, very interesting, innovative idea about digital pedagogy awards. So these are encouraging and motivating, promoting the teacher and all the stakeholders also. Then let me look for the presentation from Tajikistan also. I think first thing is they're very interesting to know that the Tajikistan, you have a very the geographical challenge of mountain area, but despite this challenge, you try to the country together again with all the stakeholders to introduce a holistic approach to make sure the school, teacher, parents are supporting education while maintaining the health and safety protocol also. So they have produced, I mean, within the more than 1,000 video lessons. So now, like other countries, some other countries, and now increase to more video lesson to reading to complement, supplement for the remote learning the way also. And then also now students are going back to the school, but also country are now preparing if it is preparing for the returning school, but also country are preparing for new normal stage, and also leading to making to a more, if it's the second way, how we should be responded. So it's very interesting to see that also. Meanwhile, also the country has planned to provide the resource and training for teachers through the both distance and school basis. So it's a kind of hybrid approach, different approach, which are locally relevant, are introducing also. For Uzbekistan, I mean, it's also we have very impressive to see the large number of video has been produced, and we can see from the presentation made by my colleague, the Bakhtia also, and it's total of now in almost 3,880 lessons, and then also not only for this lesson are provided from various key main language and local language also across all the school subjects, and then in the local and national language as well. So which is very impressive to see also. And then also they have make it a different channel, 5 tele channel to broadcast all the support. So to catch up and not for learning loss as well. So even more, I think we could also like other country, the country are taking the consideration seriously about the less able children, how to accommodate the disabled children. So the video lesson and all the material provided are not only for the normal student, but also they have considered for the other disabled. So for to be the education for all, to make sure all the inclusively all the students have received the similar quality education also. And then they have also were able to accomplish encourage the 200 teachers and providing incentive and support for the teacher support also. So it see that, you know, I mean, all these 4 countries, they are doing, in conclusion, that not only government play the role, but also other stakeholders play the very important role as well. But at the same time, not only national, they are local level are also supporting and addressing the issue, global issue in the local way also. And then also, we can see that all the 4 countries, they have not only providing the service to not only the majority of the school to ensure inclusively all the children receive their education. This is one of the collective view which I can see from the Central Asia region also. Now let me go to the presentation from our colleague Mr. Cho from the CARIS. First of all, I'm really great to hear that, you know, how CARIS is the organizing and providing the service globally, and of course to the Central Asia region. We can see, I mean, we have presented a very comprehensive presentation about each and every country in the Central Asia region, how CARIS working together with the government in the Central Asia country to work together to enhance and to reduce particularly the urban rural digital gap, and also they're providing the very important role of teacher training, and then developing the new modules which are locally relevant. Not only in this kind of the downstream, you know, also you are. I'm so glad to see that you are also providing the policy advice and ensuring that the competency which are addressing the fundamental of the need for the enhancing this ICT education. So I'm so glad to see that the collaboration between CARIS and then Central Asia country, as well as also see the possible future collaboration also. And then, as I would like to repeat again, you know, you are emphasizing on the reducing the digital gap between urban and rural in the region. So this is important to develop infrastructure, so which you are addressing different area, which we are truly appreciate and going to see there also. I'm sure the participants from the region and all the participants, all the member states from the Central Asia region were very happy to hear that also. And then also I would like to summarize or give you some key takeaway from for the Korean experience also. Again, also I'm impressed to see how Korean Republic of Korea government and also together with all the stakeholders quickly and effectively respond to this COVID learning crisis. I mean, these are very important, and then also amazing to see that they're putting in place. Of course, I mean, we know that, you know, we have a very good infrastructure. Republic of Korea has been in a one step ahead always in this ID area, but within a short time, you have make it the host for the 6 billion user to simultaneously. So it's a kind of the amazing the technology and also amazing the collaborative work you have managed to do, which are very, I mean, I would say inspiring for us as well. And also another thing which are very important takeaway, which I wanted to take is, you know, I mean, of course you have a technology, you have a fund, and you have a commitment, but also one thing is a kind of the synergy for working together. You have a, because you said, I mean, in the presentation from Dr. Jen said, you know, there are a lot of initiatives from the pilot school came out with the different locally relevant lesson plan and locally the practice. But at the same time, there's more than 1,000 teachers. I would say that there's a community to exchange and share ideas. So it's a kind of, I can see that kind of the synergy for throwing away. I mean, about how the, you know, all the intellectual knowledge from all the individual experience coming together in the community to make it massive, and also I would say that kind of change make to your country to quickly and effectively respond to COVID-19, which I would say it's a very inspiring for us, and also it's kind of the thing which we should learn together. So not only that there's the funding, I mean, the technology, but also the bringing together. This is very important. And then one thing which I really also take note of that, the country commitment, and the last point you make it, the education must not be stopped, which I really, really appreciate, and truly, which this is our collective concern, which we need to do that. So with this, I would say overall, I'm so glad to see a lot of interactive, interesting and innovative idea happening in the Central Asia region. And so we really appreciate and also glad to hear the presentation and summary made by our national counterparts and all the good questions made by our participants, and also a lot of interesting and inspiring, I would say the inspiring lesson and also practice we share from our partner CASIE and Korean approach. So that makes our this seminar is more lively and more interesting, also very interesting. And while the time, I mean, we are in the time of the uncertainty, and it's way ahead also. So then we are learning, we all are learning together as along as we go also. It's a new things are coming, new challenges are coming also. So we are sure that, you know, this our great effort for the time. Hopefully this seminar give us a lot of the hope, a lot of idea, a lot of exchange, a lot of synergy, will give us a lot of good practice, will give us the next step, especially for our main goal of the achieving inclusive quality education for the everybody, all the school, all the children, for achieving SDG 4. So with this, I would like to pass it to the floor to my colleague Orkin. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tang. Yes, I very much agree that I think this webinar provided a chance for Central Asian countries to learn from each other, but also other countries to learn from Central Asia, as well as the Republic of Korea. I think we had very rich discussions, a lot of great questions. Thank you so much to everybody for your participation. Despite COVID, I think we were still able to come together and learn from each other, and that was the entire objective behind this series of webinars. A few reminders before you leave. Please don't forget to complete the exit survey when you leave the webinar. If you would like to attend the second webinar, it will take place on the 7th of October on the theme of open and distance education to promote learning and skills development throughout life, led by the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning. And you can already register on the same website. The link has been shared in the chat box. All of the resources will be available on the UNESCO Almaty and Bangkok websites in Russian and English. So please keep checking the website. And with that, best of luck. Thank you. Stay safe and healthy. Good day to all, and see you soon. Goodbye.